This week on Three Dad Bods.
She lived in an apartment. So what the thief did is she was on the second floor, so you think she'd be safe, right? Well, he jumps on the balcony below her and then pulls himself up onto her balcony. I was in that industry for almost 9.5 years. And so I was thinking the other day about it and looked up a couple articles online. Well, I thought we'd have a little just discussion about home security because,
So is that what you were in? You were in home security?
Yeah. So
Now, were you like the security guards with the black jackets and the little earpiece in their ears? And Ralph, I see something in the borderline coming around here, coming around to the outside. That type of home security?
No, I haven't had the opportunity to knock some skulls with a mace or
nothing like that.
No, I wish. That'd be great.
Just to feel someone's flesh to crush your
2015, I knew that divorce was happening. And so I was in the mortgage business, as you remember. And I thought, man, where can I get a job where I can go to work at 7, get off at 3:30? And anyway, but most important thing was to be there for my boys so that, we could have a family time in the evenings. And so I got a job at Vivint, and Vivint at the time and even now, reputation is kind of a place for younger people to get started in life. That's kind of how they've built their employee base. Now there are some higher end jobs there, but it takes a long time to get to those positions. I was helping keep people from canceling their Vivint account for about 3.5 years. And then I helped people upgrade their systems for another 2 or 3 years. And then my final stop was helping people get a new system for 2 or 3 years. So
did you get Utah Jazz tickets?
Yeah, actually there were a few times I went to some Jazz games. But one thing I noticed is, I saw the good and the bad at Vivint. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever owned a home security system?
I have. So AT&T, my wife works for AT&T, and they put out their own home security system.
Why would you get one normally?
Well, so a couple things. First of all, they were coming out with this. They wanted beta testing. So we signed up for it. We basically got it for, I don't even know if we paid anything for it at all. And then they sold it to, who did they sell it to, Trace? Honeywell, or I can't remember. Who's the big alarm company?
ADT.
ADT. Yeah. And when they did that, then they came with fees and everything like that, and we shut it off. Now, the reason why, first of all, we own guns. Second, we have a very vicious dog that's inside the house.
It's not that vicious.
She is that vicious. Yeah. You won't get past her. You will attack.
She make a big noise though. But what if you're not home?
The dog is still inside the house.
Yeah, but dogs don't really. I mean, dogs can be a factor.
This dog is a factor. This dog will attack. Every time we have anybody over, we always have to put her away because she will bite her.
You're kind of hitting one of the first myths I want to talk about. So there's 7 myths of home security. I found this on a CNET magazine our article online. It was pretty good. And one of the things they talked about, the first myth, home security, is they're all expensive, kind of like your AT&T system, ADT. So that was one of the major complaints. Now, there have been a number of do-it-yourself companies that have come out in the past 10 years.
Like Home Depot and stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Simply Safe, Home Depot, even now, one thing that's really,
is that what the Ring is and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Ring, they were bought by Amazon. And so they actually have a $10 a month subscription for the security side. No one gets it. Most people just want to get the cameras. So there's the old fashioned, anybody tries to break in your house security where you're connected to local fire and police, where they have a monitoring center that checks up on you. And then
Mhm.
there's now more of the do-it-yourselfers want the cameras where they'll be notified on their phone. If there's anything going on inside the home or outside the home, they'll at least be alerted to that. Now, some of them like Vivint and ADT have it connected in one platform where you can go to the police or fire department. I mean, you even got cameras that'll, squawk at you or whistle at you like Vivint and ADT. So, depending on how complicated your security situation is, but in most cases, you don't need that complicated of a system. As soon as they said, hey, you're going to have to pay money each month, that's the second myth, is that you have to sign a contract or have a subscription. So what's nice about like Simply Safer Home Depot is there's no contract, right?
Mhm.
So all you have to do is set it up yourself. Now, if you do want to have monitoring, that's an optional, it's like a feature. You pay for it each month. And most of the time you can get it fairly inexpensively, $10, $15 a month. And sometimes they'll even include cameras like Simply Safe. Now, there is one drawback. So this is where the subscription security is a little bit easier on the pocketbook than, let's say, the do-it-yourself.
Mhm.
They have like packages or financing like with ADT and Vivint, where
Mm.
you can get a really nice system and just have that monthly payment, but then they lock you into a 3 or 5 year contract. Whereas with Simply Safe, you do have to pay for the equipment upfront. Does that make sense?
One of the things that I absolutely hated about the system itself. So the way these systems work is you have a contact that's on your door. So
Right.
you have one that's built inside where the lock is, or whatever you call it. I don't know what that's called on the door, but you have a battery that's inside there with a sensor. And then on the door itself, it rubs up against that. And that's what senses it, right? And the battery would go out
Yeah.
like
Your
once a
AT,
year. So
the AT&T one would? Okay.
and the little round watch batteries, but when you've got it on like a window, a door, to change that thing, especially the one inside the door, like I'd
Yeah.
have to get inside there and pull the thing out, and like it was just a hassle. I hated it. And
Well,
after a while, like I would go like 2 months without this battery working on this one window or this one door.
in the beginning, when they first started this trend of home security, a lot of times they'd come out and service your system once a year. You get this 1 year review of it, give them a chance to sell you more equipment. But a lot of customers got trained in that and thought, okay, that's going to continue forever. But most of these companies now won't
Right,
do that.
right.
They'll give you a partial warranty on the equipment, but they're not going to, so yeah, you do have to buy the batteries, and you're right. They
Yeah.
are kind of a pain because then you have to
It,
know
it
how
was
to, yeah,
a glass break sensor.
yeah, and the motions
Well,
are worse.
the problem with the glass break sensor was every time our dog barked, which is anytime anybody walks in front of our house, it would
Mhm.
set off that glass break sensor. So we'd be out to dinner, get a call from the alarm company, your glass break sensor's gone off, our windows get broken. Oh, it doesn't
No.
appear to be. It's just like,
Well, the other side of it, we got more complaints for motion sensors than we did for glass breaks. The reason
yeah,
being is,
get a
I mean,
fly,
let's say
bat.
you've got older family living with you. Grandpa gets up, he's got dementia. He goes outside to take a whiz. He doesn't think about the home security system. Or you got
No,
teenagers coming home at 3 a.m.
or just
They don't think it.
animals. Like your cat would sense it off,
Yeah,
set it off.
anything under 20 pound animal doesn't, but any dog that's over 20 pounds is going to set it off. And cats,
Yeah.
for some strange reason, they love glass breaks and motion sensors. They'll curl up right on them, even if they're above, 10 feet up. The damn cats up there like a weird fat.
Because cats
hanging
are
from-
freaks.
Cats are freaks. All right. So home security systems in the past were really complicated, especially my son. He worked for Vivint as an installer one summer, hated it. But back east, especially about where you are in DC, well, a little farther east than you, but a lot of the older homes had wired systems. And
Yeah.
talk about a nightmare for an installer, having to figure out
What's
these
where?
older. Yeah, exactly.
And
And-
old corroded wires, and
oh yeah.
probably have
And
to
then,
end up rewiring it anyway.
and then the old days too, everything was analog. So
Hmm.
to get the monitoring, you had to be connected to a second phone line. So there was added expense
You have to have a second phone line.
back
Wow.
then. Yeah. So back then things were pretty complicated, very easy, almost like a video
Yeah.
game. You can literally plug and play with most of these do-it-yourself systems. I mean, you open the box, you set up the display with Simply Safe. It's just like a tower, like your internet. And then they have really easy, simple instructions, a little adhesive on the back of those door sensors you
Yep.
were talking about, glass breaker motion if you wanted. Most people even forgo that now. All they want is a camera inside or outside. I wouldn't get the inside cameras just because there's
People can
there's
break
been
into
some
them, can't
issues.
they?
Well, Ring has had actually people hack them from outside the
Yeah.
house. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I plus privacy. I mean, Vivint and ADTs are closed. So Vivint or ADT cannot monitor your camera. It's physically impossible. All they can do is tell on your system if they're active or not, as far as the cameras. But yeah, Ring had a problem. They had a number of their cameras, 4-year-old girl. She was being harassed by an older guy.
That's terrible.
Yeah, scary as
Yeah.
hell. So home security now is not as complicated. So that's the other myth. Security systems are complicated and too difficult. So a lot of people avoid them.
My work has a 7,500 volt fence around it, electric fence.
That's a pretty good security system.
1,500 volts of electricity pumping through that. Like inside my office, you can hear it pumping, go boom, boom, boom.
Do bugs hit
And
it
it's a
sometimes?
pump. Well, bugs don't do anything to it, but where it comes in handy is we'll get drivers that'll back equipment into it, and then I have an alarm that's outside, so it'll set
Oh.
off the alarm out there. So that lets us know right away that somebody's backed into our fence. But yeah, we have that, and then 7 cameras laid out there, and then an electric fence that's up in or a power gate with badges. So it's old Barky.
One interesting thing, we kind of touched on it. So if you're a burglar, Brent, I'm going to let you play burglar for a second. If you knew someone had a telephone wire and power and they had a security system in that home,
Just go
would
to the
your
box
first thought
outside.
be?
I'm going to flip the box outside. I used to work for AT&T, and I used to set up everything inside their Uverse. I was the Uverse installer, and phone line, internet, all that stuff. So everything is right outside your house where it is.
Yeah, you don't
just
want a
have to
system like that. No.
click.
In fact, most of the really good systems now are all wireless. So like with example with
Yeah.
Vivint.
It's all Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's Wi-Fi and cellular. They actually have a cellular module built into their panel.
Okay, this then,
Yeah.
because recently there was the AT&T outage that happened.
Good question. They'll have some issues, but the important thing, though, the cameras will still work. See, with a Vivint panel, it's also connected to Wi-Fi. So you'd have to have internet and the cell towers go down at the same time to be at risk with a Vivint system. And you would still have the ability to protect the doors and windows. But if your power's out, the only thing is going to work is that old technology with the doors and windows and the motion and glass, because there's no power for the cameras, and unless you've got one of these battery cameras. And the battery cameras suck. I mean, there's a good company called Arlo that has a pretty decent camera, but those guys have to go out and change the batteries like once a month. And and if you're getting a lot of video, that's going to drain the battery even faster. So
Let me ask you this, okay? So I am out with my wife. I'm having dinner or whatever, okay? Somebody breaks into the house. From the time they break in to the time the police arrive, how much time is that?
Well, you want to know the truth?
Yeah.
Because we're breaking the myths here. And this one I don't have from the article, but this is the truth. I've talked to a police officer before. And in most communities, if there isn't someone in the home that's a homeowner or family member, and then there's a physical intruder in the home at the same time, they'll go immediately to the home. because they look at
But
that
how
as
soon is immediately though?
like within minutes. But if you and your wife are out on a date
Mhm.
and your alarm goes off, you're probably not even going to see them for an hour, maybe longer. They might not even show up.
So what is the point of having that alarm system that I'm spending all that money on, and now I've lost everything in my house?
Well, that's a good question. Now there are a couple more of these myths we're going to talk about in a second, and so it kind of relates to some of those. But I would highly advise that you have a preventative camera. It's much more valuable than any of the door and window sensors. I know
But
someone.
what good is that going to do though?
Well, a preventive camera would be a camera that would react to an intruder. So
Okay.
you got your sign outside, nice and bright. It's LED lighted, like Vivint's. And then you have one of man, Vivint's not the only one, even though they'll claim they're one of the only ones with a good camera. But the reality is there's a lot of good cameras out there. But most of the outside cameras today have items that will be tripped by someone either through motion or infrared. Someone comes into the line of sight of these cameras, and then what they'll do is they'll whistle. They'll immediately notify you on your phone that someone's in the yard. You can actually customize it to certain areas. So if anybody gets within 15 feet of the doors, you're going to get a notification. At that point, there's going to be a button on your app. You press it, bam, 85 decibel siren goes off, scares the living Jesus out of them, and probably your neighbor as well. So it's going to get attention, and it's probably going to scare them away. That's the idea. Now,
That's the thought process. But again, if
Yeah.
I know for a fact that nobody's in there and the chances are the police won't be called and there's just going to be a loud siren, or you get a notification and they got masks on while I watch everybody take everything inside of my house.
Well,
Again, I
most of
spent all that money for
every
nothing.
home security company has verbiage or little disclosures that state they will not be responsible for any break-in because they can't be, because every security system isn't foolproof. You can break into pretty much any security system.
Before you ask that,
Mhm.
do you have statistics in some of the stuff that you have there on how long the average house break-in takes? Less than 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's quick.
It's very quick. And it's like something that keeps going around in my head is the gym that I go to. We have break-ins there in the vehicles simply because people won't. I always park right in line of the gym, of the front door and the window, so that somebody's always looking, or they can see somebody looking in. Okay.
Mhm.
It's when you get outside of that view, literally not even 2 minutes, you're talking less than 20 seconds that somebody will break the window, reach in, grab a purse, grab whatever it is inside there,
yeah.
and gone. So quickly, untraced, it can't be done. Holding your breath, running through, grabbing stuff inside your bag and getting out of there, it's not a lot of time. It's very quick.
You want to find an interesting fact. If I asked you a question, who would be more at risk? Someone that lives in an apartment with a lot of neighbors around them, or someone that lives in a house at the end of a street? Like, let's say a pretty deserted street. There's only 3 or 4 homes on it. Who's it more at risk for a break-in?
Well, I think you have to also take into account what kind of neighborhood or apartment it is.
Sure, absolutely.
First of all, poor people don't get robbed.
well,
And it's people from outside of a neighborhood that come into a neighborhood that do the thievery.
there's some truth to that. You go to the rich neighborhood to get the candy bars, right?
Right,
Well,
absolutely. The big old
What?
full
I'm going
size
to tell you
bars.
this. So this lady I was talking to, I was trying to sell her alarm system. And she lived in an apartment. So what the thief did is she was on the 2nd floor. So you think she'd be safe, right? Well, he jumps on the balcony below her and then pulls himself
Pulls
up
up.
onto her balcony.
Yeah.
She left her sliding door unlocked. He waltzes right into the home. He has 3 of his buddies come upstairs. They go in and take 2 of her big screen TVs and some other stuff, walk right out the door. This is the middle of the day. So it was in the morning after she'd gone to work. They just walk out the door. There were people that the neighbors that saw these
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
They didn't say anything.
You're just going to think they're either like repo guys or
They're
some kind
moving.
of mover or something like that. Daytime.
Yeah,
You'd be more suspicious at nighttime in the dark time.
Yeah.
But during the day, I totally see.
Most burglaries occur in the morning. That's the surprising stat. A lot of people don't realize that. So, have you ever been broken into?
No. Hold on. In my car.
Yeah, I have too.
Yeah, it was during Christmas time. I had a Toyota 4x4 pickup truck. We went to go see the movie Beavis and Butthead in the movie theaters.
Nice.
And yeah, we went to see the movie.
You said Butthead.
Now in Utah around Christmas time, FM 100 plays continuous Christmas song. So that's what we were listening to. We were listening to Christmas song. Went in, saw the movie. Came out. My window was shattered. They tried to take they thought my stereo was a removable face stereo, and it's not. So they took the face off my stereo.
Oh no!
Took like some CDs. Didn't even take Tracy's purse that was behind the seat, or a big thing of CDs, and got out of there. The reason why I remember this and the reason why I hated it so bad is because they removed that faceplate off the stereo, which was on continuous Christmas songs, which means I could not turn that off or change the channel or turn down the volume or anything. So for about a week and a half until I got everything replaced, I had nothing but Christmas music.
Okay, so I had a car situation too. And this is kind of interesting because this is something you should all be aware of. So I was taking the shuttle to the airport. And so I went to the Ramada Inn off North Temple and Redwood Road. I pull up, go to the front desk of the Ramada. I said, I heard you could park here. Where do I pay for it? And they said, well, right here, two Indian guys that could barely speak our language. They said, we have cameras. And I'm like, okay, park in front of the hotel. So I go outside. I have this Nissan Sentra that's pretty good.
That's probably the guy that robbed you.
I don't know. So I shut everything, lock it up really good. All I had was some paperwork inside my glove box, but that was about it for, registration and insurance and stuff like that. So 3 days later, come up to my car and back window shattered.
Oh,
there's crap strewn everywhere in my front seat. They stole my registration. So it was like 10 o'clock at night. So I called Salt Lake PD. I said, hey, I need to file this. And they're like, it's not worth it. Just go get your window fixed.
Go to your insurance.
Yeah, you don't even want to claim it because you're going to be paying more for your deductible. They said, now, one thing you better be careful of. I said, what? He said, what did they take? I said, my registration. And he said, did you have a garage door opener? I said, why?
What's your address?
Well, so what's going on is they'll break in your car. They won't steal anything other than your registration. So, if you're stupid enough to leave your door unlocked, they won't be able to force the window. So they'll just slip into your glove box, pull the registration and take off. And if they can, grab your garage door opener. Then they drive to your house while you're still at work and click on that garage door opener, go inside your home, and you probably leave the inside door unlocked. And next thing you know, you're wrong. And so that's one. Now, I had one other experience. This was when we were living in Highland, Utah. So we lived in this, it was a Rambler, and we had this bad habit of leaving the garage open. And all our kids were between the ages of 6 and 15. And you know how they are. They're playing with bikes and scooters, and they're out in the backyard all the time. Well, they were all at school that morning. And so I had already gone to work, had no idea. One of our neighbors was having a remodel. And so I had gone to work. My wife had got all the kids ready. They're going to school. So she left the garage door open, and the school was only like 8 or 9 minutes away. She drives over to drop the kids off. And so the back door's wide open, the garage door's wide open, and then the inside garage door opens up into a hallway, but our master bedroom is right there. And our master bedroom door is wide open. So this guy, construction guy, had been watching her habits every day for about a week. So he walks right
Wow.
into the hall, into our bedroom, steals my
Wow.
iPod at the time. That was a big thing back then. Takes all my checks, all my credit cards.
Ooh.
And then we caught him 3 days later. What he did is he wrote a check to himself on my account. What an idiot. Third strike. He went to prison for a while. I don't know how long, but yeah, I didn't get my iPod back, but I didn't lose any money, luckily. The scary part though, this is what really hurts when you get broken into. You remember it for a long time, emotionally.
Yeah.
What,
You feel
what if
violated.
what if my ex had been home?
Right.
What if one of my little kids, well, sometimes parents will leave their little one,
Yeah.
like 7 or 8-year-old, just for a few minutes. Hey, mom's going to the store real quick. She'll be right back. You're going to be okay, right, honey? I'm fine watching TV. Well, someone walks right into the house. He thinks it's mom, runs back, sees a stranger.
Yeah.
I mean, may not happen to him, but the reality, that's scary shit.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that is a nightmare to most parents. So,
Well,
would have been,
I think that what gets most people is that anger of you've been violated.
Mhm.
An unwanted person came into my place and touched my stuff. Traumatic.
Well, and if I was moving into a new neighborhood where a lot of construction was being done, if I was moving into an apartment complex, where I didn't know anybody, and I was from out of town, there's some things where I think security system, like you said, may not be perfectly effective, but emotionally, it's going to give you peace of mind.
Okay. So
And
let me ask though,
yeah,
that scenario that happened to you, if you had your alarm system, would that have stopped anything?
yeah. Well, let me explain what we could have done now with the new systems that are out. Now,
Saying like if that same exact scenario
Mhm.
happened today, would your alarm system have
Yeah.
been a help?
So yeah, what she would have done is as she backed her car out of the driveway, if she would have left the garage door open, her alarm or her app would have told her that, hey, you left the garage door open. It would have buzzed and let her know that. She clicks on a button and shuts the garage door and activates the alarm system. So anybody that tried to go through the inside garage door, out any of the outside doors, it would have immediately triggered the alarm.
Know that you've left a garage door open like that, as opposed to like I'm just mowing my lawn and my garage door is open.
Okay. So, usually, like, let's say you're going to the airport. You've probably had this feeling, oh, we forgot something. What did we forget? Did you remember to shut the garage door? Oh, I didn't. Call the Johnsons. Have them go check our garage door because it bugs you while you're in the airport when you get on your plane. It's like, did I leave the
Right.
garage door open or did I leave the back door open? So it's kind of a scary situation where you're not sure if you left something open or not. So, yeah, I mean, you can have your system fine tuned to deal with those kind of things. If you're worried about security, you should have a good security camera. Now, it doesn't have to be a part of the security company's line of cameras. Like, for example, Vivint, they try to market their camera as the end all of end alls. It's the best. It's the greatest. And the reality is, when it first comes out, it is, but within 6 months, it's dated. You can
Right.
go to any Best Buy or any online camera provider and get a better camera than what Vivint can provide you. And it's less expensive. You
Mm.
pay a lot of money for those cameras. I can't say exactly the amount. I don't want to
Yeah.
get sued. But the
Yeah, I mean,
reality is,
you get like
you're
99 bucks, you can get a Ring camera at Home Depot.
right. Well, even the rings are kind of garbage too. I mean, there's some better brands that you can get.
If you spend 65 bucks on a camera, you're going to get a $65 camera.
Now, so home security can be effective. That's one of the myths is home security systems aren't effective. But, you've got to look at a lot of different factors. You got to decide, is this really what I need? Or do I need a little do it yourself option? Or do I even need anything more than a camera? A lot of people would be just fine with just a camera. Some of the homes are a little older looking, so thieves aren't going to be looking at it and saying, there's a target. And you don't get anybody that ever gets broken into. Everybody leaves their door open. So in those kind of situations, you might be getting sales pressure to buy one, but do you need one? The only thing I could say is some of these systems do have some life-saving options that might be worth a look. And you can still get these on your own too if you want to go to Home Depot, but like a smoke detector or carbon
Mhm.
monoxide detector that's monitored. That's the difference. I'll
Mhm.
give you a scary story. So a guy I worked with at Vivint, he and his wife, their master bedroom's on the top floor, and his mother-in-law, she's about 80 years old. She has a bedroom on the main floor. Well, they had a service guy over to work on their hot water heater that morning. And what he did is he didn't quite fasten the gas hose to the water heater like he should have. So there was a leak and collects first in the basement and then seeps up through the closets.
Yep. Rises.
So about 10 o'clock, he gets a call from Vivint's monitoring. They're like, Mr. So-and-so, your carbon monoxide detector went off. And he was having already effects because he'd been asleep for a little bit.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
he's like shrugged it off and said, no, everything's fine. Leave me alone. Hangs up. Well, with Vivint, as they're monitoring, and this is one area where Vivint shines. Their monitoring has been rated number one in the industry several years now. And this is a reason. They have live humans. So when an alarm goes off, there's two people that are monitoring each, so alarm signal comes up, one person's dealing with that signal, but let's say the signal goes off again. So my friend fell back asleep real quick because of the gas, and they called him again. And this time they were like, urgent, you need to get your family out of that house. This is and at that point, he gets up, gets his wife, gets the mother who was very, very groggy. She had to go to the hospital and gets them all out of the house. Fire department shows up. They're like, geez, you would have slept the rest of the night.
Yeah.
You all three
Gone.
dead, gone.
Gone.
So there's some reasons to have smoke and fire third party protection. One other nice thing Vivint had was instead of having to get one of those GPS $40, $50 medical alerts, I'll give you another story. And this is one where it wasn't quite as a happy ending. My grandmother, years ago, my grandfather was having some medical issues and he was in a rehab hospital. So she was at her condo by herself and it was middle of February. She decides to go out and just grab the mail. And on the way back, she's about 85 at the time. She falls in her garage. And in Utah during the winter, it's like 25 degrees outside in
Mhm.
February, and the garages aren't that warm because it's a non-heated garage. She fell and shattered her hip. So she didn't have her cell phone with her. So she laid there for 8 hours until her son showed up to take her to dinner that night that he was planning. Found her
Wow.
in the garage, called she went to the hospital too. So they both ended up in the rehab hospital at the same time. But
She fell
she
down and
would
she
have
couldn't get back up.
she would have had one of those panic pendants like Vivint gives out. It's just part of the normal setup. She could have squeezed that. EMTs would have, our monitoring team would have alerted the local EMTs to go out and check her, and she wouldn't have been sitting out there for 8 hours. And you can imagine an older person that has a fall, doesn't have their cell phone close to them, they could die. I mean, literally die. So I think, yeah, every person, every family situation is different. And so the reason to have a security system could be very different. Now, one last myth though, before we end it, you brought this up. Will insurance cover a, a burglary? So if you get robbed, is your insurance going to cover it all? So do you have renter's insurance or do you have homeowner's insurance that's going to cover everything in a robbery? You should know if
It covers
you
a
do.
value. It plays a
Exactly.
value on stuff.
And they'll often put caps or limits too.
Does insurance give you a discount for an alarm system?
They will, but it's not as
Really?
much as people think. Most companies give you,
Insurances are trash right now after
yeah.
COVID.
Well,
After
and right now maybe that would
highway
be a good.
robbery.
Yeah, I mean, right now that might be a good idea. But back in the day when I was doing mortgages, your average, at least in Utah, your insurance was $400 to $500 a year. You're getting
Yeah.
a $40 or $50 discount for the year. It's not much. But now, like you look at areas like Florida, you have a home security system, you're going to get a much better Texas, you get a much better insurance discount having a home security system. But here's the thing that, insurance, here's the thing you got to realize is some people will go, well, I have home insurance or I have renter's insurance. I don't care if I get robbed. Well, look, think about this. What about the family pictures? What about your laptop? What about the jewelry? What is irreplaceable that you have in your home? You have guns, right? I mean,
Yep.
what if those guns are stolen? I mean, some of them are pretty expensive. What if you have right now I'm selling collection?
But here's the
coins.
problem. Not at home and that happens, it's all going to be gone anyway.
Well, there's a chance, but there's also a chance too.
There's a
Now,
pretty
this
good
is-
chance it's going to be
Well,
gone
this-
anyway.
home security systems aren't effective. You brought that up. Let me give you some stats. 1% of professional criminals interviewed. This is a study they did in Britain and then another study they did in the United States. But this one is from Great Britain. 83% of the professional criminals interviewed stated they would try to find out if a home or business had a security alarm first before robbing it.
So they're going to look for the little sign out front.
That or just check to see if they can see any security item. Security,
So some extra AT&T. This home is monitored by AT&T.
Yeah. I'll put it
So
up.
I will. So listener, if you would like to buy one from me, I will sell to you for $400. One-time charge, $400. Just place it out in front of your yard, and your home will be safe.
Get those false cameras. People do that all the time too. And then the last part of that survey, 60%, these are known criminals in prison. 60% said they would find it easier to target.
They're in prison, so they weren't that good. I would ask the guy who hasn't been in prison. That was a professional thief. So you're asking a bunch of losers that got caught anyway.
Amateur.
So I mean, that guy doesn't know anything. I want to know the guy that's been successful. This Ocean's 11 style. That's who I want to talk to. Get what they say.
Well, here's my final point, final advice, and this is from me personally, not the article. Don't buy a door-to-door salesman's pitch when they come by and try to sell home security. Just say no. It no matter what. I don't care how emotionally you like the guy and how good he is at presenting the system. Just say no. It's like the Electrolux or Rainbow salesman that comes by and shakes out the dirty bag that they keep in their briefcase, and it's always dirty, of course. Just say no, because you are going to pay a incredible commission to that guy. They haven't worked into their numbers. And also, too, a lot of promises are made and a lot of promises are not kept.
Same with cable and stuff, too. It's the exact same thing.
Just get it over the telephone or online.
Gathered from you is that I have to keep all of my valuables to where you can't get them within 2 minutes. So I'm having my big screen TVs bolted to the walls. Can't be done. I'm having safes bolted to the walls with all of my jewelry and everything inside of there.
Make sure those guns are protected. That's a big one.
I've got a gun case for them, that will take more than 2 minutes to get to and to find. And so I got a 2-minute clock. So you're going to get some cans of aerosol spray.
Those those ADT signs up in your front yard.
You're going to get a ton of that. So
they'll take that too.
Because you'll be the drunk down the
They'll catch you. And you thieves out there, don't steal someone's checkbook and write a check to yourself. That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. That's a good point. I think a lot of the bad guys from our past, they don't go anywhere but stay in their front room and go online and steal stuff. So
yeah,
I think
that's the biggest threat. And I think your chances of getting broken into, that's cybersecurity is a whole other issue.
Well, my brother works for one of the top cybersecurity companies in the United States. He's been there over 10 years. I think what we're going to do, Brett and I kind of break the episodes into 2 parts, usually when we do them on our own without a guest. And I think one thing I want to start helping people out in terms of what to look out for, what to be aware of. I think I've learned a thing or two. Brett knows a lot too. And so maybe we can share something that's going to protect your home, your family, your finances.
Violence.